The Summoning of Hope. The great dome of Iridian High Council shimmered with an eerie blue light as Elder Soren addressed the desperate gathering. Outside, the moons of Arida cast long shadows across a landscape scarred by war. The once gleaming crystal spires of their capital now stood cracked and broken, a testament to the relentless Malkari assault that had been ongoing for nearly 3 cycles. "We have lost the outer colonies." Soren's voice was steady despite the gravity of his words. His 4 arms were folded in the traditional posture of mourning as his scaled skin reflected the dim light. "The defensive grid on Arida's second moon has fallen. Our scientists estimate we have perhaps 20 days before our homeworld's shields collapse." The council chamber erupted in voices. The Iridians, a species known throughout their sector for their mathematical brilliance and peaceful philosophies, had never imagined they would face extinction. Not until the Malkari Armada had appeared at the edge of their system, their biomechanical ships consuming everything in their path. "What of the collective?" asked Council Member Terrace, her voice barely audible above the commotion. "Have they responded to our plea for assistance?" Soren's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of profound disappointment. "The collective has deemed our situation unfortunate but contained. They will not risk Malkari aggression spreading to their territories." Silence fell over the chamber. The Iridians were alone. It was Nera, the youngest council member in 5 generations, who finally spoke. Her scales were still bright with youth, not yet dulled by age, or, until recently, hardship. "There is one option we have not considered," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "The ancient texts speak of a species from beyond the Great Void, warriors unlike any our galaxy has known, beings so fierce that even the precursors treated them with caution." Elder Soren's eyes widened. "You speak of forbidden knowledge, Nera." "I speak of survival," she countered, rising to her full height. "I speak of humans." The chamber erupted again, this time in fear and disbelief. Humans were creatures of legend, stories to frighten young ones, beings of impossible strength and unfathomable violence, yet also capable of compassion and sacrifice that defied Iridian understanding. "The texts claimed they could break stone with their bare hands," one council member whispered. "And continue fighting even when gravely wounded," added another. "The dimensional bridge has been sealed for 10,000 years," Elder Soren said. "Opening it would require energy we cannot spare and knowledge we do not possess." Nera moved to the center of the chamber, activating the holographic display. Ancient symbols and equations swirled around her. "I have been studying the precursor mathematics. The bridge can be opened with precision, not to their entire world, but to summon a single human. One warrior might be all we need." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, desperation won out over tradition. With the Malkari closing in and no other options remaining, the High Council authorized the forbidden ritual. 3 days later, in the ancient underground chamber beneath the Temple of Equations, Nera directed the most brilliant minds of Arida in a task not attempted for millennia. Crystal arrays hummed with power diverted from the planetary shields, a dangerous gamble that would leave them vulnerable for precisely 6 minutes. "The calculations must be perfect," Nera instructed as she moved among the scientists. "We are creating a bridge across not just space but dimensions. We must target a human with the warrior's spirit, one who can help us." The air in the chamber began to shimmer as the ritual reached its crescendo. Reality itself seemed to fold and unfold, geometric patterns forming in the air that hurt the eyes if observed too long. The Iridian scientists worked frantically, adjusting crystal alignments as Nera called out corrections to the mathematical sequences. "Bridge integrity at 70%, called out one scientist, his 4 hands moving rapidly over the crystal controls. "Dimensional lock established. We have a target." A blinding flash filled the chamber, forcing the Iridians to shield their sensitive eyes. When they could see again, a figure stood in the center of the summoning circle. Not the hulking monster of legend, but a human of average height for their species, Female, with dark hair pulled back tightly from her face, wearing some kind of military uniform with unfamiliar insignia. She held a weapon they didn't recognize, pointed directly at Nera. "Who the hell are you? And where am I?" The human demanded, eyes darting around the chamber, taking in everything with remarkable speed. Nera stepped forward, making the gesture of peace with her upper arms while her lower ones remained visible and empty, showing she carried no weapons. "I am Nera of the Iridian High Council. You are on Arida, in the Cerulean Galaxy. Her voice faltered momentarily, we have summoned you from Earth because we need your help." The human's expression showed equal parts confusion and anger. "My name is Lieutenant Maya Chen, United Earth Defense Force. You've got about 10 seconds to explain how you summoned me before I decide this is some kind of hostile action." Nera quickly explained their desperate situation, the Malkari invasion, the imminent fall of their civilization, and the ancient texts that spoke of humans as legendary warriors. Maya lowered her weapon slightly, but her posture remained tense. "Let me get this straight. You used some kind of interdimensional magic to kidnap me from my post, because you think humans are what? Some kind of super soldiers." "Not magic. Mathematics," Nera corrected. "And yes, the texts speak of human resilience and adaptability. Qualities our people lack." Maya laughed, though there was little humor in it. "I'm just a regular soldier. Nothing special about me." As if to contradict her words, alarms began blaring throughout the temple. Elder Soren rushed into the chamber, panic evident in his movements. The Malkari detected the energy surge from the ritual. "Their strike forces have breached the outer defense ring." He stopped short at the sight of Maya. Is this the human?" Before Nera could answer, an explosion rocked the building above them. Dust and crystal fragments rained down from the ceiling. "How many hostiles?" Maya asked, her demeanor suddenly shifting. The confusion was gone, replaced by a focused intensity that startled the Iridians. "3 carrier ships," Soren replied automatically. "Each typically deploys 40 combat units." Maya checked her weapon, then the rest of her gear. "I need to understand the layout of this place, their attack patterns, and what weapons you have available." The Iridians exchanged glances. This was not the reaction they had expected from a being suddenly torn from her world and thrust into their war. "We should get to the security center," Nera suggested. "From there, we can." Another explosion, closer this time, cut her off. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the main exit from the chamber. "New plan," Maya said, surveying the damage with remarkable calm. "What's the quickest way to get above ground? And please tell me someone here can fight." The journey through the temple's emergency passages revealed much about both species. The Iridians moved with precise, calculated steps, each movement efficient but fundamentally cautious. Maya moved differently, fluidly, constantly adjusting, eyes never still as she processed her surroundings. "Your species built all this?" she asked as they passed through a particularly beautiful corridor where mathematical equations were etched into crystal walls, creating patterns that seemed to shift as they moved. "Our ancestors," Nera explained. "Before the Malkari came, we were scholars, mathematicians, philosophers. We built our civilization on understanding the patterns of the universe." "And these Malkari, what are they after?" "Resources at first," Elder Soren said grimly. "Now it seems they will not stop until we are eradicated. They see diversity as inefficiency. They consume and convert. Those they capture are never seen again." They reached an observation platform near the surface, just as a Malkari dropship screamed overhead. The vessel was unlike anything Maya had seen, part machine, part biological organism, its surface rippling like muscle under metal skin. "That's not what I was expecting," she murmured. The dropship landed in the plaza below, and the sight of the Malkari themselves made Maya's blood run cold. They were tall, insectoid creatures with too many limbs moving in perfect mechanical unison. Not just similar, identical, as if stamped from the same mold. Where their faces should be, they had sensor arrays glowing with cold blue light. They're a hive mind, Nera explained. One consciousness controlling many bodies. They cannot comprehend individual thought or action. It makes them incredibly efficient in battle. Maya watched as the Malkari began methodically securing the plaza, moving in perfect formation. Their weapons were embedded in their limbs, organic technology fused with mechanical precision. Efficient, maybe, Maya said, studying their movements. But predictable. A group of Iridian defenders emerged from a nearby building, firing energy weapons at the invaders. Their shots were well aimed but had minimal effect. The Malkari responded with devastating precision, cutting down half the defenders in seconds. Your weapons aren't powerful enough, Maya observed. They adapt quickly to our technology, Soren said, his voice heavy with defeat. Each time we develop a new weapon, they analyze it and develop countermeasures within days. Maya's eyes narrowed as she continued to study the battle below. But they expect patterns. They expect logic. A smile crept across her face that made the Iridians uncomfortable. It held an intensity they didn't understand. Let's see how they handle something illogical. Before they could stop her, Maya had assessed the structural support of the observation platform and located a maintenance tunnel that would give her access to the level below. With strength that surprised the Iridians, she pried open the access panel and slipped through. Wait, Nera called after her. You cannot face them alone. But Maya was already gone. The Iridians watched in horror through the observation windows as the lone human emerged on the far side of the plaza. Instead of hiding or seeking cover, she walked directly toward the Malkari forces, firing her weapon with incredible accuracy. The projectiles, primitive by Iridian standards, tore through the first row of Malkari soldiers before they could adjust their defensive fields. For a moment, the perfect formation of the Malkari faltered. It was barely perceptible, but to the mathematically attuned Iridians, it was as shocking as if the laws of physics had suddenly changed. The hive mind was confused. Maya used that moment of hesitation to change position, moving in a way that seemed chaotic yet somehow purposeful. She fired again, taking down 3 more Malkari before diving behind a fallen column. The remaining invaders redirected their fire, but Maya was already moving again, her pattern unpredictable, her actions seemingly random yet devastatingly effective. Impossible, Elder Soren whispered. She is one against many. And yet, they watched as Maya continued to engage the vastly superior force, using their own precision against them. Where they expected her to retreat, she advanced. When they concentrated fire on her last position, she was already elsewhere. She used the environment in ways the Iridians had never considered, toppling structures to create barriers, reflecting energy blasts off polished surfaces to hit enemies from unexpected angles. In less than 6 minutes, half the Malkari force lay disabled or destroyed. The remainder pulled back to their dropship, retreating with the same mechanical precision with which they had arrived. When Maya returned to the observation platform, she was breathing hard but appeared largely uninjured save for a small cut on her cheek. The Iridians stared at her in stunned silence. "What?" she asked, reloading her weapon. "You said you needed a warrior. How did you? They outnumbered you 8-1, Nera finally managed to say. Maya shrugged. They fight like machines. Perfect, predictable patterns. But war isn't math, it's chaos. Humans understand chaos. Elder Soren stepped forward, looking at Maya with new eyes. The texts were right. You truly are what the Ancient Ones feared, and what we desperately need. Maya's expression softened slightly. Look, I still don't fully understand what's happening or how I got here. But those things down there, they're the type of enemy I was trained to fight. So until I figure out how to get home, I'll help you. Nera's expression filled with hope for the first time in months. Then you will stay. You will fight for us. Maya looked out at the burning city, then back at the frightened yet resilient faces of the Iridians. A small smile formed on her lips. "First, I need to understand exactly what we're up against. Then I need to see your weapons, your defenses, and every scrap of intelligence you have on these Malkari." She checked her watch, a habit the Iridians didn't understand. "And I need food. This is apparently going to be a long day." As if on cue, the distant thunder of more Malkari ships echoed across the city. This time, however, the sound didn't bring only dread to the Iridians. Now, it also brought something they had almost forgotten: hope. The turning tide. 3 weeks after her unexpected arrival on Arida, Lieutenant Maya Chen stood in what had once been a mathematical lecture hall, now converted into a war room. Holographic displays showed the positions of Malkari forces throughout the system, their formations still perfect, their advance methodical, but noticeably slower than before. Maya studied the tactical display with intense focus. Around her, 24 Iridian officers waited in respectful silence. In the short time since her arrival, the human had reshaped their understanding of warfare, turning their mathematical precision into an unexpected asset rather than a limitation. "They're establishing a containment perimeter," Maya said, gesturing to the pattern of Malkari ships. "Standard siege tactics. They're adapting to our new defensive strategies, but they're still thinking linearly." Nera, now serving as Maya's primary liaison, stepped forward. "The new weapon modifications have proven effective, at least temporarily. Our energy rifles are now operating at variables the Malkari find difficult to predict." Maya nodded, a smile touching her lips. It had been her idea to introduce randomized energy fluctuations in the Iridian weapons, something that went against every instinct of the mathematically precise species, but which temporarily confused the Malkari targeting systems. "It's buying us time, but they'll figure it out eventually," Maya said. "We need to take the fight to them." She pointed to a large vessel at the center of the Malkari fleet. "That's their command ship, isn't it?" Elder Soren, who had become one of Maya's strongest supporters among the council, confirmed with a grave nod. "The Nexus vessel. We believe it houses the primary consciousness that directs the hive mind. It has never been successfully engaged. Its defenses are impenetrable." "Nothing's impenetrable," Maya replied with the confidence that still startled the Iridians. "Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it." She turned to address the assembled officers. The past weeks had been a crash course in human combat tactics for these scholars-turned-soldiers. Many had been skeptical at first, but the results were undeniable. For the first time since the invasion began, the Iridians were holding their ground. "I need volunteers for a high-risk operation," Maya announced. "We're going to infiltrate that command ship." The silence that followed was profound. Finally, an Iridian engineer named Tellus stepped forward, his scales darkened with age and experience. "With respect, Lieutenant Chen, what you propose is mathematically impossible. The probability of successfully boarding a Malkari vessel, let alone their command ship, is effectively 0. Maya smiled. "Impossible by whose math? Yours or theirs?" The question hung in the air. It represented the fundamental shift Maya had been trying to instill in her Iridian allies, the idea that sometimes the solution lay outside the equation. "I've been studying the wreckage of the smaller Malkari vessels we've managed to disable," she continued. "Their technology is advanced, but it has distinct patterns. Patterns we can exploit if we approach them in ways they won't expect." She activated a different display, showing schematics she had painstakingly assembled. "There's a vulnerability in their propulsion system. A small team might be able to use it to gain access. Once aboard, we'll have approximately 12 minutes before the hive mind detects the intrusion." One by one, Iridians stepped forward to volunteer. First Nera, then Tellus, followed by others who had worked closest with Maya. Their fear was evident, but stronger now was their trust in this strange alien who fought with such inexplicable effectiveness. "We leave in 6 hours," Maya told them. "Get whatever rest you can. This won't be easy, but nothing worth doing ever is." As the others filed out to prepare, Soren remained behind. The elder studied Maya with all four of his eyes, each focused with intensity. "You've changed us," he said simply. Maya paused in her preparations. "I've just shown you different ways to use what you already had." "No." Soren's voice was firm. "Before you came, we calculated, we analyzed, we predicted. We saw the pattern of our extinction and accepted it as mathematical certainty. You have taught us something we had forgotten, if we had ever known it at all." "And what's that?" Maya asked. "That sometimes salvation lies in the spaces between the numbers, in the unpredictable, in hope that defies calculation." He placed one of his four hands on her shoulder, an unprecedented gesture of familiarity from an elder. "Whatever happens today, the Iridians will never be the same." Maya felt the weight of his words. She had not asked to be part of this war, but now found herself irreversibly committed to these people and their survival. "Let's make sure there's an Irida left to change," she said. 6 hours later, Maya led her small team toward the Malkari command ship in a stolen Malkari shuttle. Tellus had reprogrammed its identification codes based on patterns Maya had identified in their communications. It wasn't perfect. The deception would only work for minutes at most, but it might be enough. The shuttle approached the massive Nexus vessel, which loomed against the backdrop of space like a dark star. Unlike the elegant crystal architecture of the Iridians, Malkari design was functional to the point of brutality, angular, efficient, without aesthetics of any kind. "They're scanning us," Tellus reported, his four hands moving rapidly over the controls, transmitting the identification sequence now. Maya gripped her modified weapon tighter. The shuttle continued its approach, each second stretching painfully. Then, miraculously, the massive hangar doors of the Nexus vessel began to open. "It worked," Nera whispered, disbelief in her voice. "For now," Maya cautioned. "Remember the plan. Once we're inside, we move fast. No hesitation." The shuttle slipped into the cavernous hangar. Inside, rows of identical Malkari drones stood in perfect formation, motionless, awaiting commands from the hive mind. The sight was unnerving. Hundreds of the insectoid creatures, perfectly still, like parts of a machine waiting to be activated. "They haven't detected us yet," Maya whispered, checking the scanner she had cobbled together from Iridian technology. "The control center should be 17 levels up. We need to move before they realize this shuttle isn't supposed to be here." They exited the shuttle, moving silently across the hangar floor. Maya had trained the Iridians in stealth techniques, something entirely foreign to their culture of open academic discourse. To their credit, they learned quickly, following her lead with a discipline that would have impressed her commanding officers back on Earth. They had almost reached the access corridor when one of the Malkari drones suddenly turned its sensor array toward them. For a moment, it seemed to stare directly at Maya, its blue lights pulsing. "Move," Maya hissed, shoving the nearest Iridian toward the corridor. The drone emitted a high-pitched signal that reverberated throughout the hangar. As one, every Malkari unit activated, turning toward the intruders with perfect synchronization. "So much for stealth," Maya muttered, raising her weapon. "New plan. Run." The team sprinted for the corridor, Maya laying down covering fire that temporarily disoriented the closest drones. The randomized energy bursts from her modified rifle created brief disruptions in the hive mind's coordination, enough to buy precious seconds. Once in the corridor, Tellus sealed the door behind them, his hands working with remarkable speed. "This won't hold them for long," he warned. "It doesn't need to," Maya replied. "They'll expect us to run or hide. Instead, we're going straight for their central processor." The journey through the Nexus vessel was a nightmarish gauntlet. Alarms blared continuously as the hive mind tracked their progress. Twice they were cornered by Malkari security forces, and twice Maya's unconventional tactics created openings where the Iridians saw none. When a squad of drones trapped them in a narrow passageway, Maya improvised an explosive from equipment they carried, not to destroy the drones, but to collapse the ceiling between their positions, a move the hive mind clearly hadn't anticipated. When another group blocked their path to the upper levels, she led her team through maintenance shafts the Malkari had apparently never considered could be used for transit. How do you think of these solutions? Nara asked as they climbed through a particularly tight vertical shaft. There's no time for calculation, no room for error, yet you make these decisions instantly. Maya paused, considering how to explain. Humans call it intuition. It's not random. It's based on experience, training, and instinct. Sometimes you don't need to see the whole equation to know what the next move should be. A beautiful concept, Nara murmured. Our philosophers would have much to discuss with yours, if we survive this. They reached level 17, emerging into a corridor that pulsed with an eerie blue light. At the end stood a massive door, guarded by 6 elite Malkari units with enhanced weaponry. The central processor chamber, Tellus confirmed, checking his scanner. The primary consciousness is just beyond that door. Maya assessed the situation. A direct assault would be suicide. The guards stood in perfect formation, their movements synchronized as they patrolled the entrance. They would need a diversion. Tellus, can you access their internal communication network from here? She asked. The engineer studied his device. Possibly, but any message I send would be recognized as foreign immediately. We don't need to send a message, Maya explained. We just need to create static, interference, noise. Understanding dawned on the Iridian's face. He quickly modified his device, then activated it. Immediately, the guard drones reacted, their movements becoming less coordinated as the hive mind struggled to filter out the interference. Now, Maya ordered, leading the charge. The battle was brief but intense. The Malkari elite units were formidable, but the disruption to their neural network slowed their reactions just enough. Maya's team suffered injuries. An Iridian technician lost one of his 4 arms to an energy blast, and Maya herself received a deep wound across her back. But they prevailed. Beyond the door lay the command center of the Nexus vessel. Unlike the utilitarian design of the rest of the ship, this chamber was organic, almost cathedral-like. At its center floated a massive crystalline structure pulsing with blue-green light. Within it, suspended in some kind of fluid, was a brain-like organ at least 3 meters across, the physical manifestation of the Malkari primary consciousness. The hive mind, Nara whispered in awe. Arrayed around the central brain were smaller neural nodes, each connected to the main consciousness by tendrils of light. Maya recognized them immediately from the ancient texts Nara had shown her. The sub-processors, she said. Each one controls a different aspect of the Malkari forces. They moved quickly to secure the chamber. Maya studied the central brain, looking for vulnerabilities. Destroying it outright would be the simplest solution, but something held her back. A soldier's instinct that there might be more to learn here. Tellus, can you interface with this system? She asked. The engineer approached one of the secondary consoles. I believe so. Their data architecture is complex, but follows mathematical principles I can navigate. As Tellus worked, Maya kept watch on the entrance. It wouldn't be long before reinforcements arrived. How's it coming? She called over her shoulder. I've gained access to their tactical database, Tellus reported, his voice tight with concentration. Lieutenant Chen, you need to see this. Maya joined him at the console, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The display showed not just Arita, but dozens of other worlds, each marked with invasion timetables, resource assessments, and population statistics. This isn't just about your world, she realized. The Malkari are planning a full-scale invasion of this entire sector. Arita was just the beginning. There's more, Tellus said, his hands moving rapidly over the controls. I found their primary weakness. The hive mind requires precise calibration of its neural network. That's why they value predictability so highly. It maintains the stability of their collective consciousness. Maya immediately understood the implications. That's why our unpredictable tactics have been effective. We're not just confusing their battle plans, we're disrupting their ability to think collectively. A sudden idea formed in her mind. Can you access their communication protocols? The ones they use to coordinate the hive mind across all their forces. Tellus hesitated. Possibly, but what are you thinking? If unpredictability disrupts them on a small scale, Maya explained. Imagine what would happen if we introduced chaos into their entire neural network. The engineer's eyes widened with understanding. A cascading failure. The entire hive mind could collapse. They worked quickly, Maya providing the strategic concept while Tellus implemented the technical details. Using the Iridian's mathematical expertise, they created an algorithm that would introduce random variables into the Malkari communication network. Subtle at first, but increasingly chaotic as the system tried to compensate. It's ready, Tellus announced just as the sound of approaching drones echoed from the corridor outside. Do it, Maya ordered. Tellus activated the program. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the central brain began to pulse erratically, its rhythmic glow becoming sporadic. Throughout the chamber, status displays flickered as the hive mind struggled to maintain coherence. We need to get out of here, Maya said, helping the injured Iridian technician to his feet. This whole ship is going to become unstable. They fought their way back to the hangar level, encountering Malkari drones that now moved with jerky, uncoordinated motions, some even attacking each other as the chaos spread through their neural network. By the time they reached their shuttle, the entire Nexus vessel was in disarray, systems failing and drones collapsing. As they escaped the massive ship, they watched from a safe distance as the disruption spread through the Malkari fleet. Ship after ship lost formation, some drifting aimlessly, others executing partial maneuvers before stopping altogether. It's working, Nera breathed. The entire hive mind is collapsing. Back on Arita, the Iridian resistance forces seized the opportunity, launching coordinated attacks against the now confused Malkari ground forces. Without guidance from the hive mind, the drones were unable to adapt or coordinate, making them vulnerable to even the most basic tactics. 3 days later, Maya stood with the High Council as they formally declared victory. The Malkari threat had not been completely eliminated. Some autonomous units remained, and there were surely other hive mind clusters elsewhere in the galaxy. But Arita was safe. For now, we owe you a debt we can never repay, Elder Soren told her during the victory celebration. You have given us back our future. Maya looked out over the gathering. Iridians who had been scholars and mathematicians just weeks ago were now warriors too, not by replacing their peaceful nature, but by expanding their understanding of what they were capable of. I just showed you a different approach, she said. The courage was always yours. Nera joined them, carrying a crystal device that pulsed with energy. We've completed our analysis of the dimensional bridge, she said. With what we've learned from the Malkari technology, we believe we can reopen the pathway to Earth. We can send you home. Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. Earth seemed so distant now, almost unreal after everything she had experienced. Here on Arita, she had found purpose, respect, and even friendship. Or, Nera continued, sensing Maya's hesitation, you could stay. Help us prepare for whatever comes next. The Malkari will return eventually, and there are other threats in this galaxy. We need what you've taught us. About warfare, yes, but more importantly, about thinking beyond our limitations. Maya looked at the expectant faces around her. On Earth, she had been just one soldier among millions. Here, she could make a real difference. Help build something new. And perhaps most importantly, serve as a bridge between two species that could benefit tremendously from knowing each other. The ancient texts spoke of humans as beings of great destruction, Soren observed, but they failed to mention your capacity for creation as well. Maya smiled. That's humanity for you. Contradiction is our specialty. She made her decision. I'll stay, at least for now, but on one condition. Name it, Soren said. We use the dimensional bridge to establish proper contact with Earth. No more summoning individuals without warning. It's time for humans and Iridians to meet officially, as equals. The Iridians readily agreed. Together, they would forge a new alliance, one that combined Iridian mathematical precision with human adaptability and intuition. One that might, in time, stand against not just the Malkari, but any threat the galaxy might hold. As the celebration continued around her, Maya found a moment of quiet on a balcony overlooking the Iridian capital. The damage from the war was still visible, but already reconstruction had begun. The crystal spires would rise again, perhaps stronger than before. She thought of Earth, so very far away, and wondered what her superiors would say when they discovered an entire alien civilization asking for formal diplomatic relations. The thought made her smile. The stars above Arida were unfamiliar, their patterns unknown to human astronomy. Yet as Maya looked up at them, she felt a strange sense of belonging. Humans had always looked to the stars and dreamed of what lay beyond. Now she knew, and soon others would follow. Lieutenant Chen, an Iridian aide, appeared at her side. The Council is preparing to make the first test transmission to Earth. They request your presence. Maya took one last look at the alien sky. Let's make history, she said, and turned to face her new future in a galaxy that would never be the same.